What do you cover? Do you do crime? Okay. Cool. That's awesome.
I don't know if you guys know who the Waskins is. They're
Yes.
a black newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
For both. It's
A partnership? Oh, cool. So will the same piece that you do for the spokesman end up in Blacklands, or?
Only because the Black Ones runs on a monthly basis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can write daily for the
Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. Oh, cool. I hope to bump into you more. Yeah. That's great.
Like, this tradition is like first of its nation. Like, the first of its nation to have a duel between the black newspaper and the mainstream.
Yeah. That's awesome. Get it, girl. Get after it. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Gregory.
What are you, the time police?
Well, I'm just a little bit. If there's somebody that has to be, and that's going to be me. Not allowed on my watch. Not on my watch. No.
Hi, I'm in a meeting right now. Can I call you back right after? Are you gonna be around this evening past 5? Okay. If I can't, is this a cell number? Could I text you if I have to call you tomorrow? I don't know. Okay. Yes, I really appreciate it. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks so much. Bye. Chris, you try again?
Yeah, I've been trying. Cat just said roll. I know, I'm texting Cat right now.
People are already messaging us. Where are the captions? Angry emoji face.
Hey, we're connected.
Okay.
I'm still doing
The internet must be up then.
Yeah, must have like just gotten back.
Oh my God.
Okay, very good. Don't pressure people when I say.
Can I roll with you at the same time?
All right, everybody want to catch your mics? Make sure you were able can hear us. Test, test. Test, test, test. Test.
We're good. We're good, sure.
Everybody good? All right.
Wonderful. So let me start by saying thank you to the media that have come to attend this press conference. I think it's vitally important that we finally start talking about this from a broader perspective, and this being the gun and gang violence that we've seen erupt in our city over the last 18 months. And it's important that we come together and bring different elements. Leaders, our community organizers. And today, you're going to hear from some of those advocates, after we give you a brief presentation on the Sheriff's Anti-Violence Project entitled SAVE. So my name is Philip Tyler, IPTYLER. I am the former Spokane Branch NAACP president, and I am a current member of the steering committee of Safer Communities Partnership. With me today, we're going to hear from Charles Williams, who is our Youth Gang Intervention Project Coordinator with Safe Communities Partnership. We're going to hear from Brother Sean Lazama, Milestone Ministries, Milestone Squadcast, and Community Advocate, and William Davis, a gang intervention specialist with experience in youth gang and youth gun violence. And hopefully we'll also get to hear from Pastor James Waskins, the pastor of New Hope Baptist Church. He's running a little bit behind schedule, but that's the format of our conversation today. So I'm going to turn it over to our sheriff to introduce the sheriff's anti-violence effort, and then I'll come back up and we'll have some conversation with our community advocates. Sheriff?
As you know, in March of this year, Chief Meidel and I stepped in front of the cameras and talked about the gang violence that we were starting to see. Since that time, we have lost 3 more young men and young juveniles, ages ranging from 15 to 25, which just happens to be the age range of most of the violence and most of the victims of that violence within the United States itself. We started talking after that press conference and reaching out to members of our community and asking, how do we fix this? How do we get this to stop? During that time, we came up with the Sheriff's Anti-Violence Effort, SAVE, which is designed to deal with the problem. We have an increase in our youth violence. Much of that violence is driven by gang activity. So you can see the youth and gang homicides, juvenile assaults. We see all kinds of things on social media right now related to that. And quite frankly, easy money. I don't know if it's really so much easy money though, folks, when you're dying to make it. That's the myth of this type of lifestyle. There's only really 2 outcomes of it: prison and or death. We're seeing a lot of drugs, a lot of guns, and vape pens sold in our community. That is generating a lot of this violence. We modeled this after the ceasefire model. It's been successfully done in Boston and several other areas around the United States, with our goal of stemming this type of violence. We have talked with a lot of these key elements and brought them to the table as of right now. The community element and the community involvement is key to solving this issue. Our goals: define, plan, and build the support for this effort, law enforcement activities, school involvement, and community involvement, and our hope is to increase the community support and therefore decrease the violence. We're seeing a lot of fentanyl and fentanyl overdoses disrupt the flow of guns and money and drugs and asset, and disrupt the gang violence within this region. The planks, our basic idea is not to send a lot of people to prison, but to save a lot of kids from this lifestyle. It's easy to arrest people, folks. The hard part is getting them out of this lifestyle, convincing them that this is not the way to go. We can arrest people all day long. It's really the impact of getting these kids out of the lifestyle. Several years ago, at the request of Pastor Happy Waskins, we formed a program that gave an apprenticeship program into the building trades. We're going to double down on that, and Judith Gilmore, who was instrumental in bringing that program together, has been working with our trade unions within the area, and we're working to create a apprenticeship program into all of the trades within this region. Good jobs, good training, and give these kids a way out. The thing is, some of them may have already been in trouble, may have already been arrested. We have talked with the courts, we've talked with the prosecutors, and we're willing to work with these kids, and as long as they stop the style, stop being involved in this effort, the gang effort, we'll work with them to get them into these programs and out of the system. If they want to continue with the gang style, well, then we will bring charges. And we will arrest them, and we will put them in prison. That's not our goal, though. Our goal is to break that cycle. And this is key to breaking the cycles, quite frankly, folks, is the community. We can only do so much as government. It's going to take the mentorship of the community to help us get those kids into these programs, into the apprenticeships, and make sure that they are there on time, mentor them in a lot of different life skills, and help them break the cycle. So, Phil, that is, in a nutshell, the philosophy behind it. But this is one of the big reasons. This issue is starting to get younger and younger. And if I can get this to play. Mark, is there a way you can grab the computer and get the video? This was filmed while undercover officers were working on a totally different issue, and they caught this by happenstance. What you just saw was a handoff. And look how young these gentlemen are. This is what we're trying to stop. And this is what this whole project is about, is those two young men's lives moving forward. Phil?
Thank you, Sheriff. So I want to introduce one more member of our group that really started us along this path back in January, and that's Latrice Williams here. And you'll hear from Latrice coming up here shortly. But if not for Latrice addressing this problem and calling us to action, to take action, we wouldn't be standing for you today. So I appreciate you, Latrice, and bless you for being here today. But it's time, Spokane, to save our youth. And I use SAVE as the word and the acronym for the program. Not only our youth, but our neighbors in our neighborhoods. And that time is now. So today we brought together our leaders, moral leaders, community leaders, our law enforcement partners to address this ongoing violence. Gang and gun violence has been happening in our city too long. What we won't do here today, and even in questions for follow-up, is talk about House Bill 1310 or House Bill 1054. The only numbers that we're concerned about here at this group is 9832. And if you don't know what that RCW is, that's homicide. And the lives that are being lost, particularly these young black lives that are being lost. We're also concerned with the number of 541,188. Make that 187 now, after Saturday's shooting downtown. These are the numbers that we're concerned with, the lives of our brothers and sisters. And this is not about performative activism. This is not about clickbait headlines. That's not the point. In fact, it misses the point. The point is that we must do what's right, and what's right is fighting for our youth, standing up for our youth. It's the preventative measures on the front end, the investment in these young men and women, the exit points along the way, as the sheriff detailed, and no more failing our youth. You know, one week it's East Sprague, the next week it's West Sprague. Previously it was in the Valley. Then on East 5th. This is affecting all of us in our entire city. This is devastating mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, aunts and uncles, grandparents, friends, and neighbors. This is impacting businesses downtown. This is impacting our entire community. You know, while some will sit and shout about police killing other young people of color in other cities, We are witnessing young black men dying in the streets of Spokane, and we're turning a blind eye. But no more. When we ignore our own pain, the pain only gets worse. So we're stopping that today. We're no longer ignoring it. We owe it to the families that have lost. We owe it to each other. We owe it to those that are grieving today from their losses. They want answers. They want support. And by starting this Project Save, we're going to be offering that support. We keep hearing the narrative that the impacted people in our community, well, damn it, excuse my language, black young men are being impacted. Men that look like me and my friends sitting here. Their families are being impacted. Their friends and their neighbors are being impacted, yet we remain silent. Some of our titled leaders are using Black Death as a hustle. They're using it as a means to get their ends or as an agenda item. If black lives truly matter to this community, then let's work together with our law enforcement partners, with our community partners, with our schools, with our neighbors, with our neighborhoods. Let's focus on the support they need before they get to the point where they don't care about one another, where they're internalized anger and or oppression, and they see only one option to resolve conflict at the end of a gun. That's why we're here today. You're going to hear now from my girl, who started us along this path, Latrice Williams, to give a couple comments with regards to this conversation. Latrice?
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm here in a couple different capacities. I'm here as a mother. I'm here as a community member. I am here as just a concerned person. And I'm here as a formerly incarcerated individual who used to be one of those kids writing in that video there. So I can reach out to everybody on every level. The reason why we're here is because there were several murders that had happened, and I just reached out on Facebook just making a comment. I didn't expect anybody to respond to me because everybody was in an uproar about all this racism stuff that was over here and who's doing this over here politically. I'm not here in a political form. I'm here because I feel like those were distractions, and that's the word for the month. It's a distraction. We are losing our children. We're losing our children, just in case you didn't hear that. I have a 21-year-old son, I have a 17-year-old son, I have an 11-year-old son, and a 5-year-old son. We are losing our children. I'm not here to politically put anybody on a pedestal, and I want to get that message out very clear. I'm not here for that agenda. We're here to save lives. And so what it was a call to action. We started meeting. We came together, we started talking about the important things to us and how we could make changes. We talked about some statistics, and quite frankly, I want to be very clear that a lot of those things were just distractions, because the real point is a call to action. What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? Because no, I don't think it's right for everybody to go to prison. I mean, that's just not that way, right? If we've got 12-year-olds to 20-year-olds, I would much rather see them be construction managers or doctors or lawyers or whatever, electricians, right? We have the ability to give them those tools. And so that's the reason why I came, and we're meeting with Sheriff and the Chief and these other folks here today in the community, because I want to be that person that they can come to. I'm not here to have nobody go to jail. I'm not here for, all the other extra stuff that goes with it. I'm just here to save lives. And I just want to change lives one life at a time. Change the world one life at a time. And we got to start with our youth, because we're losing them. Thank you.
Charles.
My name is Patrice Williams, and I work for New ESD 101 as a Youth Gang Intervention Program Coordinator. Unfortunately, we are talking to you because of some tragic incidents that occurred with our youth this past year and weekend. At these times, we have to come together as a united community to help our future, which is none other than our youth. By coming together, we have to ask and collaborate to bring supportable programming to ensure that our youth have the best opportunities for them to succeed and excel for all their future endeavors. Now, granted, not all programs work for every student. That is why, by working together, we have to learn about the different programs that are out there that best assist our youth. The program that myself and my colleague offer is called the Safe Community Partnership Program. Both Kaylin Robertson and I help provide educational and career development opportunities for youth who are dropping out of school or no longer attending traditional school to give them the opportunity to obtain their GED by partnering with Open Doors. As they work on their GED, we help them with goal setting to guide them to furthering themselves through career development, college, trade school, etc., as a means to get them to where they need to be. We provide wraparound supportive services to allow these young people young people every opportunity to grow and become successful members of their community. Safe Community Partnership Program also aims to provide job training opportunities in the form of job shadowing to prepare youth for their specific job careers they are interested in. At the same time, as we are providing these services, I mentioned, we are also providing a safe environment for our youth. In this space, we will have open gym time, recreation activities, and a place where they could go and get help with their schoolwork. Although we are a new program, we wish to help all programs that serve our youth become successful, because at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about our future, which is our youth. Thank you.
Mr. Sean?
Thank you, Phil, for having me, Sheriff Ozzie. My name is Sean Lazama. I'm a Pacific Islander based out of Tacoma. That video that you watched, I saw myself and my friends in that very video. I grew up gangbanging, selling dope from the age of 14. It became the rest of my life for the next 20 to 25 years. And when I decided to change, that enough was enough, it was hard. So hard that I ruined my own marriage. I didn't know how to cope with life. I haven't seen my son in almost 2 years. I became a violent man who puts his hands on his wife. That's not okay. I want to share something with Spokane. You don't understand the problem that you're dealing with. This problem didn't just happen in the last couple of years. This started 10, 15, 20 years ago. So if you don't like what you're seeing with the gang violence, the drugs, the homelessness, domestic violence rates, human trafficking rates, if you don't like that right now, if you continue to turn a blind eye, 10, 20 years from now, it's going to be completely out of control. When is enough enough? I want to ask the politicians, the church leaders, the pastors, when is enough enough? If you call yourself serving the community and the people, how is it that kids killing kids is not a crisis? I'm a believer in Jesus, and I'm out for salvation of souls, and I can't just look at these kids killing each other knowing what I did to contribute to this in our society and not try to do something about it. My heart breaks for these kids. What are they living through that makes them go out there and do what they did, or what they are doing, what they are planning to do? How is it that kids are plotting and putting contracts on other kids and they're carrying it out? In the meantime, they're selling women, they're selling drugs, they're selling guns, and this isn't a problem. And we're worried about climate control. We're worried about property violations. We're going to lose. We are going to become as ugly as the other cities that we look up to if we do not come together. I don't care about political background. I don't care what party you're from. I don't care what denomination, what church you're from, what your theology is, what your doctrine. None of that matters. Satan is out here destroying another generation right before our eyes, and we're not doing anything about it. And if we lose one generation off top, automatically we're going to lose the next two. So my generation was lost 2 generations ago. When are we going to come together? I don't care what the differences are, because Satan is banking on those differences to continue having his way with our kids. And if we're going to have any chance, we can continue to try to do this on our own, but we have too much pride amongst ourselves. We have too much animosity amongst ourselves. We need Jesus Christ. There's no other way we're going to lose these. We're already losing them. We're already losing them. I really don't know what else to say, man. Like, I know what's happening out here. We know what's happening out here. Right now, as I'm up here, another kid is making a diss rap song, plotting to kill another kid. Right now, some dude is sitting there saying to himself, if she says something else to me, I'm going to hit her. Right now, somebody else is plotting to buy another kid, another child. This is happening. And if we can't come together, then what are we calling ourselves here? What are we doing? I came to Spokane to change my life so that I could be in my son's life. And then I come here and I see the same thing happening here. It's not right, man. It's not right. And we can do this, because Spokane also saved my life, changed my life. People here, communities here, organizations here, UGM, Spokane Fatherhood Initiative, Youth for Christ, they changed my life. Genesis Church, Revival Culture Church changed my life, saved my life. We can do this, but we also got to get out of our own way. So, man, if I don't stop, I won't stop, man.
All right, last we'll hear from Davis.
Hello, my name is William Davis, and I helped start all the problems that they're talking about. I'm from Compton, California, grew up in Watts, and initially in 1963, I got with a group of people, and we started Grape Street Watts Crips. In 66, we started Compton Crips. And throughout the years, I enveloped a whole lot of other groups and a whole lot of gangs that spin off of those 2 gangs. And so I guess you can say that I'm kind of paying back. I saw this coming when I got here in 2016. I'm a gang expert because of that, and I had talked to several officials and told them what I had saw coming down the pipe in 2016 when I got here. And I appreciate Chief Ozzie, and the video that he showed really broke it down well on what's happening with our kids. Type of mentality to point a gun and pull the trigger. I know that because I incorporated it. I taught other people how to do that because I saw something in this kid. This kid over here would hold. This kid would transport. This kid would pull the trigger. I could see that. I was the manager of these type of things. So when I got here and I saw this, I was telling my brother who works here. I had talked to Chief Mito about it and even Chief Ozzie about it maybe a couple of years ago. And I know how hard they try to put things together. But this is not something that just comes about. You know, there's a certain type of mentality and less than feeling that brings our kids from your nice little boy, you know what I mean, to a shooter. You know, nobody actually raises a shooter. They grow into being shooters. You know what I mean? Because something happens and they get disconnected some kind of way. Like this young lady was saying, she knows her son and she keeps an eye on her sons, you know what I mean? But there are some parents that we work with just can't do it. That's why we need the community. We need the community's help, and that's why I came in, because I've been here and there's not a whole lot of education given to the community about what's going on. You know, I've worked in the elementary schools, I've worked in the middle schools, I've worked in high schools, and this is starting earlier now. Like the video Chief showed, we got 13, 14-year-old selling drugs. We got 14, 15-year-old shooters. And I've been in the mix of all of the shootings that happened in the past 9 months. All of it. I know the kids. I've been working with the kids. I knew the mentality. I knew what they were capable of. But the social media sometimes, you know what I mean? You do good on this end, and then they go home, get on their things, you know what I mean? And somebody says something like the brother said, and they snap. You know, it's almost like a trigger. We call it in recovery. You know, these kids have triggers, and the triggers, you know, get pulled by social media. You know, I've had kids call me and say, well, you know, I'm got to meet some guys over here at Rogers. I'm like, what are you going for? Well, they're talking mess on social media. The next morning, I find out that my kids went over there. There was a shooting, and 2 of them got hit. You know what I mean? After I just told them, you know what I mean, let that go. But something snaps. So we got to continue to surround our kids with different programs. Letting our kids know that we can go to law enforcement, you know what I mean, because they have programs for you. You know, because there's that mistrust, there's that disconnect that we got to reconnect. You know, we got to reconnect, you know, a lot of things that's been disconnected, I want to say maybe over 15, 20 years. You know, here in Spokane, I deal with a lot of adults as well. Methamphetamine has really affected our kids, I would say, in their 20s and 30s. Because methamphetamine took over maybe 2000 and really started growing and growing and growing. So now we have kids that have mental disorders. I was talking to Brother Phil about that. You know, I'm a mental health specialist. You know what I mean? And I know what methamphetamine does to the brain, what it does to the nervous system. And after a certain amount of time, you're not thinking, you're acting. You know what I mean? So that's a very impulsive drug. You know, all I have to do is start in your mind and give you a little bit of this and tell you I need you to take care of that, and you're going to take care of that, and you're going to come back to me and give you a little bit more. That's how this thing goes. That's how the games operate. You know what I mean? When I started for a couple of gangs, my biggest asset was I had a little more than they had. So what I used to do, I used to find out who needed some shoes, who needed a shirt, and they became indebted to me. You know what I mean? That's how we pulled them in. And not everybody comes from a dysfunctional family, but some don't. Daddy don't love me. You know, those type of things kids use to get pulled in. And once we pull them in, they belong to us. And that's what we got to stop. We got to stop kids thinking that the parents don't like them, the teachers don't like them, society don't like me. Our kids are in the mindset that adults don't care. You know, we got to, and I know it's community involved. You know what I mean? Like I said, I know, and I've worked with Phil many, many times, so I know how he is in the community. We got to get more people into the community. When I worked with the Sheriff Department in Los Angeles and Compton, they created a group of us. It was go out every day to a different community that we knew and talk to the OGs, so to speak, talk to the young kids, and exactly explain to them where they were going. You know what I mean? There's only 3 places you can go: jails, institutions, and death. That's all that gets for you. I'm just one of the lucky ones that wasn't killed going through all that I went through for 37 years, actually. You know what I mean? In 2000, I just decided, you know, with my mother's help, enough was enough. She said enough was enough, so I said, okay, you know. But the thing about it is being here in Spokane, I know we can work on this. We just have to catch it now. We can't keep waiting. We can't say, you know, I heard somebody say the other day, well, there's no funding for this and no funding for that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. There's too much money somewhere. You know what I mean? Chief nodding. Okay, I'm going to talk to you, Chief, about the job when I leave here. It's too much money floating around for different reasons. Even Phil told me the same thing. You know what I mean? I would go to every community, every neighborhood, and talk to the kids myself. You know what I mean? Because a lot of kids know me because of this. This is real. This says Compton, and it's real. I grew up, I ran it for years. Compton led the nation in murders for years. You know what I mean? And I was a part of that mix. I was a part of that. So I know what it takes to bring them back in. Now it's settled, calm down. you know, thanks to the sheriff department. I was telling Sheriff Ozzie, we're afraid of the sheriff department down in Compton, you know, because they make it happen. They serious. But it takes that. You know, we need maybe more suppression. Suppression means visibility. Chief knows. You know what I mean? Maybe the kids need to see more officers in the community, doing stuff, driving by, waving, you know, instead of thinking that every time they show up, there's arrest going on, or somebody's going to get beat down, or somebody's going to get shot. You know, that's the fear for some of the kids these days. That's why they don't want to get involved. Yeah, more churches. You know, we just have to come together a little bit more, you know, and like I said, being, you know, the gang leader for a long, long time, and I was there when both of them, Crips and Bloods, matter of fact, the Bloods broke off from the Crips in 68, 69, you know, I knew all of them. And so I'm willing now to put myself out there. I told Phil, you know what I mean? If we can get together and somebody can create a position or something, I would go to neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood and talk to these families and these kids. I'm willing to do that, Chief. Thank you, guys.
You know, you heard a lot of mention about our churches and our pastors, and we have one of the foremost pastors in here following in his father's footsteps, and that's Pastor James Waskins. And I'd like to bring him up here for a few comments, and then we'll have some wrap up for some Q&A.
Hello, everybody. Pastor Watkins. I'm going to be very brief. I'm a lifelong resident of Spokane. I was here in the late 80s when gangs first started moving in. I've worked in the community centers with our youth. I've worked for 25 years in the field of corrections. I'm also a pastor in the city. And I see a growing problem, but I don't see a growing response. And I don't feel that we have the urgency that's needed to address the problem. And so my appeal would be for those who have nephews and nieces, maybe not children are grown and out of the city, but those who have people who have been affected by gun violence and violence period, that we would begin to come together. We have a fractured community. And first of all, let's address the faith community. I'm asking the faith community to come together in a more significant way than we ever have. That we have to have this faith community who at times is very fractured and resembles Crips and Bloods. And so we have to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable as a pastor and as a churches to come together to address this situation and address this situation aggressively with urgency in this matter. We're losing lives. Me and Phil, before I went on vacation, I was gone a week. And in that week, we had 2 shootings, 2 murders. Is that correct? You know, and so it's not something that we can sit idly by and wait for the next murder until it comes to our own home or our own porch. And we want to make sure that those of you who have children in this community, all of our children are in danger. It's not just the ones who are involved in drugs and gangs and all that kind of stuff. Wrong time, wrong place, and you're going to get a report and your kid may not come home. So it's just that urgent that I think that we have to come together as a faith community and become leaders in the community to address this situation and bring on all the resources. I agree that I believe that there's money and resources for every program that we it's the most options. We have those who have never been in trouble to those who are coming out of trouble, and we need to be able to address them on every level. We have to meet them where they're at. And when we begin to do that, I believe that this city is going to change. And I believe that this city can be the leader in the nation for how to address problems like this. Yes, sir. And so I have a belief system that doesn't allow me to dwell on the negative, but that we can begin to work on the positive. And I believe when we do that and we come together as a group, that we can address all the issues that are facing us today. And I think it's important, and I think it's urgent, and I think that if we don't address it, then we're part of the problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to reiterate a couple of things that has been said. This is about kids.
Yes, sir.
Period. We have young people dying on a frightening rate. This is about kids, period. 2013, the youth of this community reached out to their pastors and said, help. We're tired of watching our friends and our family die. That was 2013. We're approaching a decade away from that. We failed those kids in 2013. I have no intention of failing those kids in 2021. We have to do something or we lose another generation. For me, it's all about the next generation. I do a lot of the, because I know if I can save a parent, I can save a kid. If I can save a parent, I can save a kid. Well, right now, we have to work both ends of that problem, parents and kids, to save the next young person from dying. So I am done with activism. I'm done with politics. I am going to be putting extreme pressure on the political front in this community to come forward with the money necessary to bring this trade school opportunity to life. And it's not a lot of money, folks. It really isn't. There is enough money in this community to save these kids, and it's time to get it done. Questions?
I don't know if maybe bring slides. You had kind of gone through like some of the goals. I guess is that there's a place. There's mention of a gym, a safe place for kids to go. Where is this kind of the early stages? Are we in the fundraising part of this? I guess what can I tell in the community in the next 20 minutes of what tangibly is being done right now and what the future plans are?
You have tangible things going on in this community that never get covered.
I mean through this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Michael Brown's basketball camp and youth mentorship program at his clubhouses and at his business where he's teaching. Part of the effort. They've been part of that effort for a very long time. The next part of this effort was trade school to the building trades, the general contractors, came from an idea from his dad. Judith Gilmore and I brought that to life. Judith is working on getting the trade unions by October being able to have those trade unions kids and get them into good paying jobs and get them out of lifestyle. The programs are moving forward. Many of them are already established. We just need to get people there. When we created that at Reverend Watkins' request, our biggest problem was getting people in, getting people to come to the table, getting those kids in those classes and off the streets and moving forward. So there's a lot of things that are already in place, but you talked about a youth center and things like that. Those are other things that we can work towards, but I can tell you many of those things are already working. They're just not working in collaboration together, and that's where, Pastor Watkins mentioned it, and there's several people in this room that mentioned it. We are a fractured community that needs to stop today. This needs to be all hands at the table, together, moving this thing forward.
I have a question that can kind of go both ways, and it involves what you were saying about seeing the sheriffs and police in the communities waving, so they're not always just there making arrests. And I just wanted to ask, how is that initiative been going with the sheriff's department? Staff-wise, I know you guys have been looking for more deputies and whatnot, so, and there's so much crime that you need to cover, so physically and tangibly, how has that been a challenge and how has that been overcome? And from your perspective, how has it been as well?
We're always out there with a hand reaching out to the community. Some folks are very engaged. Some folks are coming to the table, and there's others that won't. I'll just be blunt, they won't come to the table. Like I said, Michael Brown's basketball camp, we sponsored that for several years. Somehow we lost our federal grant because somebody at the federal level decided that we can't use money designed to combat drugs as community outreach. What better way to combat drugs and gang violence than use that money on our kids? But they said, no, you got to buy stuff with it. Well, how about invest that into kids? We're fighting with the federal government over that because I think it's a very wrong message to be sent. Don't tell me I can buy stuff, but I can't save a kid's life. That's ludicrous. So for us, we're here. We continue to move forward, but there is a mistrust, and we need to break that.
Can I answer the other side of that in a parental capacity? So when I'm even Spokane news, local news, and I'm seeing people being murdered or shot, sometimes they hand the police officers, a lot of the times they're like the hand of police officers, not saying anything against your units, but I think that as a parent, when I think of my 17-year-old who is much taller than me, much thicker than me, when I think about him even walking down the street, there is a stigma there already that I need to protect my son. It's not safe. And so that's what really drew us here today. I wasn't able to say that, but now that I've been meeting with them and have gotten their side to the story and have, you know, my kids are involved at the East Central Community Center and they do a lot with PALS. I don't know if that's you guys know about that.
Yeah.
But PALS is with the police officers, and they get to communicate with them and kind of be mentored by the police officers. So instead of me worrying about him walking down the street and whether or not they're gonna just automatically use excessive force on him just because of the way he looks, I have the inside scoop now, like, well, wait a minute, you know, maybe I was seeing it a different way. That doesn't mean that every single officer is going to be that way though, or has released there. So some people on both sides are not meeting at the table, but as a parent, I can say that I now feel a little bit more comfortable with them being out because of those programs like PALS that are out there. And that's, again, a program where the police officers meet with the kids and they do activities with them. I'm not too concerned about the police officers and the adults because we have bad blood. We got bad blood. But I think that seeing my children and how lenient they can be with them and how, you know, they can lean into the officers and have communications, have conversations with them, that makes me feel more comfortable. Yeah. So I would say it's on both sides.
I think it's a wonderful question, and I think to go back to your question, I think what you're seeing is there was a moment in time where the sheriff and the chief, we're coming up on Unity in the Community, our annual event. The Unity in the Community, our chief and sheriff are always at these events. They've attended NAACP functions. They've attended community events in the city. There was this that happened in our nation, right? Our racial reckoning. George Floyd, what Latrice is talking about, relations with our law enforcement and our community. And since that seminal moment, and we're not saying that wasn't impactful to all of us, because it was, yet we should have fell back on our relationships that we have seen develop in this community, that we have seen them showing up for us and with us at these community events. What we're looking for is to get back to that. Not to dismiss those things that are hurtful that we witnessed and seen, but we're getting back to the relationships that were born out of many community meetings and partnerships back 3 years ago that somehow fractured after that seminal moment. And we need to get back together to that place of relationship. Then we can have those feelings of partnership and collaboration that we're speaking of. Wonderful question, by the way. Thank you.
Can I say something real quick? Being new to Spokane, I'm seeing a lot of brokenness. Our community here is broken. Relationships have been broken. Trust has been broken. So what we're actually talking about is repairing relationships, rebuilding trust, and asking people to focus on our commonalities, not our differences. We can deal with the differences later. Right now, we're losing a generation of kids. So what do we focus on, and how do we rebuild community through relationships and trust? There's trust broken between law enforcement and the community, vice versa, between politicians and the community, vice versa, and even with churches. There's broken relationships all across the board, and we need to learn how to rebuild trust and even address what we need to, but put that stuff to the side so that we can focus on our commonalities. Is it okay to lose lives? Is it okay to send a message to our younger generation that we don't care, that the law enforcement don't care, that their parents don't care, that churches don't care, politicians, that nobody loves them. Am I right? When you don't feel love, you have no value for life. It's no problem to take another life, and it's no problem to lose your life for the gang that the only love you get, even if it's distorted.
But let's be clear about this. We're not up here to speak about the gang culture. And when we do speak about gang culture, don't get it misconstrued. We're not talking about black people.
Right.
We're talking about behavior,
Right.
gang behavior.
Right.
That's white folks, that's Native American folks, that's black folks. We're talking about gang behavior. Please don't get it misconstrued that when we say gang activity or gun violence, it means black people. It simply does not mean that. We're not up here to represent any hood except sisterhood, motherhood, brotherhood, fatherhood, our neighborhoods. And we need all of our community to come together to resolve this.
The message of this group is likely going to resonate with a lot of families. Those parents, how they can get involved if they want to be a part of SAVE. What's something they can do now?
323-338-9801, William Davis.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you can do.
Yes.
509-558-1496.
I said earlier, it's
We're all on
about us
social
going into the
media.
community.
They can reach out to our
I can
Safer
go places
Communities
you
Partners.
can't go,
Okay.
sheriff can't go.
Yes, that.
They can
Thank
reach
you.
out to our sheriff's office. They can come to our pastor.
Yeah.
He's always available for that conversation. And we'd love it to start on that granular level, right? That community relationship level. That's how things really change in our community.
I just like to say one thing. When we were talking about healing communities, and we have to come to the table and be prepared to have a difficult conversation
Right.
of where, and that's across the board. That's from every aspect, every different group that we're going to talk about. We have to come prepared to have your feelings hurt,
Yeah.
to have difficult conversation about our conduct, my conduct as a pastor, the faith community, the policing, those of minority communities, and our attitudes that have
Everything.
separated. We got to come together, prepared to have difficult conversation, but be prepared not to leave the table
Not
until
run.
something's worked out that's going to benefit our kids. And until we do that, if you get up and leave the table, all you're doing is preparing for the next kid to die. And so it's that significant, and it's that significant, and that urgent that we have to be prepared, and we got to be able to be prepared to come in with your emotion, with your frustration, with your anger, but all in mind to get the job done. We gotta begin to put results together that saves lives.
Yes, sir.
Period. And it's not about nobody's ego. It's not about anybody's stance on whatever politics or whatever. It's truly saving lives of our children. And if you can't get behind that, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, say that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I explain this correctly. Could you explain precisely what is SAVE? What about it that doesn't already exist is being created now? And specifically for Ozzie, what is SAVE in terms of what is your department not doing already that you're going to start doing because you're introducing SAVE?
We arrest a lot of people, all right? Arrest is not going to get us out of this problem. SAVE is modeled off of programs that have worked across the nation for the last 20 years, combating exactly what we're talking about. We've already talked with the judges, the prosecutors, going, you know, we find a youth that's in trouble. Rather than trying to do anything else with him, what we're going to do, or her, we're going to get them into some intense wraparound community counseling and into a way out. There's only one way out, folks, and if you solve these three problems in a society, you stop having major problems. Education, jobs, and housing. Okay, those are it. SAVE is about helping these kids realize that if you spend the time, if you go through these programs and you drop the lifestyle, you can have all three of these things. But if we can get them there, we break that cycle. Now, let's face it, some of these kids, this is multi-generational for them right now.
Major.
All right? They grew up, they got granddad, dad, mom, sisters, brothers that have all been in this. It's time for family also to realize time to break that cycle and help us, help their pastors, help all these folks, bring these kids in and at least give them a shot. Now, if they decide not to, and these are people that we have charges on, they decide not to and they go out and continue to sell drugs, continue to sell guns, continue down this lifestyle, and we catch them again, we're going to drop a house on them. Because everything's following with it. And that's not where we want to go. We don't want to have to send people to prison. We do that enough. We have to break that cycle. We have to get these kids out and solve those 3 problems for them. Give them hope that there's a future of those 3 things. Education, job, and a house. That means they can have a family. They can break that cycle and they can move forward. That's what SAVE's all about. In a very rapid fire response. That's what SAVE's all about. Saving kids, giving them an opportunity and hope with those 3 things.
Okay. And can you explain, you mentioned basketball, you mentioned trade schools. Could you help me better understand precisely when you talk about involving these kids more in community activities beyond those ones that you mentioned? Could you rattle off a few more that you were talking about when you talked about increased community involvement?
I would do Charles first.
So with our program, what we're doing, we want to make sure that they have a healthy opportunity so that they can learn new trades, so that they can see what else is out there. So whatever is in their heart's desire, we're going to try to do whatever we can to make sure that they get those opportunities, put them in with the right people, make sure that they could go to the companies, partner with the companies so they could go in there, ask the questions they need to. Go, if they want to go to college, we're going to take them to college tours, make sure that they can see what college looks like. We're going to help them with the FOSS. We're going to make sure that they are prepared and ready to move to that next tier, and we're going to be there right there with them, so they won't feel alone while they're doing it.
And we have members that are missing in this coalition of the willing we call. Tommy Williams is one of those, excuse me, with Operation Healthy Family. And he provides those services too, such as open gym and mentoring with other adults that can speak to these young men and women and give them a place of comfort and healing. He works with them with oral health, which is vitally important to these young men and women too. I mean, if your smile ain't right, you ain't right. And we all understand that. And so it's a litany of things. It's a multi-sectoral, inclusive system. We are broken in the way we work together in Spokane. You know that. You've seen that. We breaking down these silos and working together.
Right. I think we basically mentioned something for every piece. I forgot to mention that I'm a realtor. So
Managing broker.
With that, yes, well, managing broker on my team. What else? So with that being said, that solves our last problem. So a lot of these kids, unfortunately, either are in foster care or they don't have anywhere to go. And I don't have like the cover all for everything, but I do know that once you turn 18 and you're in foster care, or 19 or whatever that you know, when your birthday hits, you really kind of get put out. And so if they're involved in these types of programs, that would be a portion of their graduation to make sure that they have somewhere to go. So that solves that too.
Is SAVE more encompassing of a proactive or reactive approach to identifying the youth that need these programs?
Yeah, I would say if you see the trajectory, we want to intervene along that pathway, hopefully early on, before they get this mindset that shifts to, you know, their lives are not valuable. Other brothers and sisters are their enemy. You know, this internalized nonsense, if you will, that says this. So we hope to interdict this along that pathway, and along that pathway give them exit points along the way. Now, it's going to take some funding too. And this is why we're here calling on our electeds, commissioners, council members, city and valley. The city's getting $80 million in ARP funds, I think that number is, right? And some of that money can be earmarked for public health crises. And I'll be damned if losing young lives isn't a public health crisis. I'll be damned if gun violence that we see jumping off is not a public health crisis, right? We say the block is hot. It's gonna get hotter as the summer goes along. It's gonna get hotter as these young men and women return to schools, where now they are bunched up together. And we need to get out in front of that. And it's gonna take some funding. But I think we have an opportunity to speak with our mayor, our council members, our commissioners, some of which are my good friends, to say maybe some of that money can be earmarked for programs such as yours. Maybe that earmarked for such programs such as SAVE. Maybe that can earmark some of those community advocacy groups out there to do that, because it's important for us to look at those things.
That's why we need a community, so it can be proactive and, what's the other word?
Reactive.
Reactive, right?
Can you give examples of proactive avenues and reactive avenues for identifying getting these kids into this program?
Sure,
Is it
proactive
something like
proactive
Spokane
would be
Public Schools?
community members
Okay.
that when they know things are going on in their neighborhood, they're reaching out to a trusted adult. Maybe it is an officer, maybe it's a deputy, maybe it's Latrice, maybe it's the pastor, and then they can collect that information and share that information to those that can interdict. Perhaps that's Charles, perhaps that's Kaylin, perhaps that's William, perhaps it's just a phone call to their pastor.
Right. I think William just said earlier too, that he deals with a lot of kids or is working with a lot of kids that sometimes their parents just can't be there, right? So if I know that my son is out of control or my daughter is out of control, which I'm sure I was that way when I was a kid, right? Or my mom, I'm sure she had to call on somebody. So if as a parent, if I know that my child is out of control, then I can reach out and, that would be the proactive. Because we certainly want to catch them before they go to prison or before they, commit an armed
Before they
robbery,
start
something that
busting.
they can't
Yes.
get out of, right? But then obviously reactive is they've already caught the charge and it turns into more of a diversion type thing. But we definitely want to start in the community. We definitely want it to be like, okay, I have this person and I need her help. I need your help with that.
Yeah, no, that's great,
amen.
that's great. I have a special connection with a lot of kids in the community that I've worked with over the past 4 years. The parents, come from Los Angeles, Compton, and whatnot, and they got involved in the gangs. So on the last shooting, which was Cash Money up at the Northtown Mall, I got out there because he was one of my kids when I first got here, and then his brother had already been gunned down in that October. And I got out there, and I got to talking to him. I got to tell him, this has got to stop. This has got to stop, period. And the rest, that's what they were worried about. All the arrests were made. So that's kind of like prevention for me, because I know if those arrests had not been made, it'd have been more shootings. So I went out there and I asked these guys, put the guns down, put them away, because they were looking for a couple more kids who are not in Spokane anymore. I found that out, but we have kids, that will listen, to me in certain situations. And right now, our gangs are suppressed to a certain extent. They're not looking for anybody. They're not doing any shooting. The shooting of the night was not gang related. I know a lot of the particulars about that particular shooting, but what I'm saying is prevention for me. If I hear something's going on or something happens, I can go to certain gang members and say, hey, what's going on, what's going on? No, we're not having that, we're not doing this, that, and the other. And they listen to me, and that helps, save some problems down the line. I'm trying to prevent.
Any other questions?
We can't let fear paralyze us from wanting to get involved. There's something that all of us can do. Even people in the church, there's also a major lack of love in these communities, in these kids' lives. There's something for all of us to do. We cannot allow fear to keep us from going out. If somebody came to your house and your family is threatened, are you gonna let fear stop you from saving and protecting them? No.
Thank you. I know it was pushing up and beyond some of your timelines, but I appreciate that you came out to hear from a great bunch of folks that are dedicated to helping protect and save our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. I'm Amanda Rowley.
I didn't look as good as I didn't know. I didn't know.
I
didn't look
and
as
I
good
was
as
gonna
you.
ask if I could get your guys' number and I
He
could
always
text y'all.
I know.
Oh, thank you. Oh, You can see this guy. He's friendly. I'll shoot you a text. I'd love to just be able to get coffee with you guys.
Please let me know anything I can do.
Chat.
Really,
And I like this guy. He's pretty.
I
Do you mind if I get your number, sir?
He told me to put him out here, but, you know, I had a young man senior in high school, and, you know, he goes to
Forgive me, your name is William Davis.
good athlete, getting ready to go to Ivy League school, and still, that's known probably half the kids who have been killed, and they have some sort of